Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. Now normally, I will give you all a normal spiel about what I'm going to go over for the review, but it's Friday night, my patience is running on E, and I'm not in the mood to waste any time. When it comes to episode 7 of Ready to Love Miami, if you haven't seen it yet, then I would highly advise you to treat this crap like a bill collector and avoid it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate this episode a 1. And if you give me a few moments of your time, I'm going to lay out my case as to why I think the episode flat out sucks. Hell, I'll even do a top 10 list for why I think this episode sucks for the review. So without any further delay, let's jump right in. At number 10, I feel that this episode sucks because we as the audience have to wait nearly 30 minutes to find out which cast member should have been voted off for elimination on the last episode. This is quite a waste of time. However, it lets me know that somewhere down the line, there will either be some double eliminations or some self-eliminations for the season. At number 9, Jonique was nominated for elimination and ultimately got the boot. This was a sad elimination. However, I don't think she should have been casted for the show. And this is because in past seasons, the men tend to go after women that are smaller and more refined. This is nothing against Jonique, but I think that her casting was a waste of time for the show. At number 8, the ladies nominate Mark Anthony and Anthony for elimination. Yet, as a group they decide to use their elimination lifeline to save Mark Anthony. This makes absolutely no sense, because there are at least 3 women who voiced concerns for Mark Anthony being on the show. And in my opinion, it would have been a lot more advantageous for the women on the show to save that elimination pass for further into the process, when cast members have begun to solidify their matches. But to add insult to injury, Nephew Tommy lets the guys know that this episode was the last time for them to use their elimination pass, which in my opinion, makes the whole concept of having a pass pretty pointless. At number 7, Andre is back in full force, but he's leading the charge in having Mercedes eliminated from the show, all because she didn't check in on him. To me, this was a sucker move, because nobody's entitled to have somebody on the show checking on them. That's a privilege, and Andre taking offense to Mercedes for doing this, while Mercedes was never in his top connections, was pretty stupid. At number 6, we have Anthony and Sue-Ann's awkward date. They make a salad together, have a dinner date where there's more eating than talking, and to say that this scene was awkward was an understatement. It's pretty clear that Anthony has no romantic interest in Sue-Ann, and Sue-Ann is likely there to fulfill her obligations for filming. But the scene overall was a huge waste of time. At number 5, I gotta mention that the back and forth between Tony and Morgan became boring after a while. I mean, we get it. Morgan wants to be chased, and she thinks that Tony is a player. Tony then has to convince Morgan that he isn't a player, while flirting with her and going in for an occasional kiss. This is a wash, rinse, repeat for the bulk of the scenes they're in. At number 4, there's a silly scene with Mercedes and Mark Anthony. They spend an extremely long period of time talking about Mercedes' inability to wink with her eyes. Mercedes feels on Mark Anthony's muscles, and they talk about a lot of surface level stuff while flirting in between. Mercedes uses this opportunity to kiss Mark Anthony, but it felt like Mercedes was trying to solidify her place on the show because Mark Anthony at this point is her only connection left. At number 3, there's a date with Mark Anthony and Jeffrey. Jeffrey uses this time to tell Mark Anthony that she has Crohn's disease. Now, while I'm very familiar with Crohn's disease, I don't think that Jeffrey should have used her diagnosis to justify why she acts a certain way with certain people on the show. I strongly believe that this disclosure put Mark Anthony in an impossible situation because he didn't want to be known as the unsympathetic jerk that dumped Jeffrey after learning about an illness. I still have zero faith that Mark Anthony will pursue anything serious with Jeffrey outside of the show. I think that he was already turned off by Jeffrey having kids, but anything else will be icing on the cake at this point. At number 2, there's Jeffrey's war with Blake and Sue-Ann, and at this point, it's getting to be very embarrassing and tiring. If I wanted to see mindless drama, then I would tune in to Love and Hip Hop. Ready to Love is supposed to be a show about one finding love, but it has strayed far from the beaten path. And at number 1, there was a date of sorts between Morgan and Blake. Now the date could have been used as an opportunity for Morgan and Blake to clear the air, but Morgan was defensive from jump, and she used the opportunity to bash Blake at every turn and name call. This scene really showed an ugly side to Morgan, and I had much respect to Blake for not taking the bait and engaging with her. Blake brushed off the drama and wished Morgan well along her journey. So the quest to get rid of Blake is still ongoing, and I think the women won't rest until Blake is gone, despite him having a solid connection on the show. But this marks the end of the review. If you have any comments about the video or the episode, feel free to leave them below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.